it, I should say. Before continuing, my name is Gary, and I'm from Infosemantics. We are also partnered with Oracle. So, just a brief overview of my background. I'm an OBIEE architect at Infosemantics. So, my experience is mostly from business intelligence for EBS, and later on it went on to BI apps, and there are a couple of other acronyms that you use for OBIEE, and so on. So it's the same thing, but so that's my background. So in today's agenda, I'll kind of try to give you an overview of what Discover is and what Oracle Business Intelligence OBIEE is, and the differences between Discover and OBIEE both, of course, and the roadmap for the Discover users. Okay, so where do we go next? How do we work together? And from our experience, we just finished a project about migrating Discover to OBIEE. So what we did, we got from the whole experience, the process, what we did over there. Okay. So Discover, initially, one of the stable versions is Discover 10G, and then they started calling it 11G to kind of sync up with various other products. Okay, and then there's a couple of, if at all you start looking into the versions, there are 10.1.3, 4, and so on, okay, various versions. So to discuss what is Discover, how many of you are actually using Discover? Pretty much all of you, I guess. Okay, good. So primarily it has been used for ad hoc reporting.
Yeah.
Right? There were few pre-packaged solutions which came with Oracle, and so Oracle was selling it as part of Oracle EBS, and that was a big catch, and then we were able to kind of implement Discover in most of the client locations. Right? Okay? And one of the, though it used to come with Oracle EBS, there was a way we could use that particular product for data warehousing also. Right? I don't know how many of you have done that,
yeah.
But in my experience, I've actually done that before for other clients. Okay, and one of the good things about OBIEE was it could actually use the built-in functions within the database, like Oracle database, whatever functions you had, you could use them. And if at all you had to kind of come up with some customized functions, you could create your own, have it in the database, so the Oracle database itself, and then pull it into Discover for you to use further. Okay, that was one of the big things. Okay. It was very well integrated with Oracle EBS, which means if at all you had to use the Oracle EBS security, you could actually use that directly in Oracle Discover. Right? Those are one of the big things. Okay. So, Discover overview at the high level. What does Discover? The reason why I'm kind of going through the Discover components is trying to relate Discover to OBIEE. Okay, so that's the reason I'm kind of going through. I know all of you already are familiar with this, have gone through all of it. Okay, so Discover comes with the Discover administration tool, right? We all know that you can create folders and security can be handled through Discover administration tool. And then for you to create the end user layer, you would still use the same administration tool, right? And then there are end user tools too, which is desktop, the client version for you to develop reports. And then there was the Plus tool, which is the web-based or Java-based product for you to develop the reports. And of course, we also had the viewer where we could allow the users only to view the reports, right? The other interesting point is about portlets and the portlet provider, right? This was a bit tricky when you were using Discover. You still had an option to use it, but you had to go through several steps before you could actually implement that, right? And then, of course, Oracle database at center, you had the external data, internal data, whatsoever, how we want to implement that. The next slide. So if at all you implemented the portlet, okay, there were some features over here where you could actually have the tabs and then have them as part of the portlets within the portal page, right? But you'll see how well it has been done in OBIEE down the line when you start looking at it. Saying that, there were several weaknesses within the Discover product. It was a great product. Okay, it had, as with many of the other products, okay, this is also a good product, but it had its own weaknesses too. Right? Suppose you wanted to connect it to different relational database system. It was a challenge, okay? Because it was actually talking more to Oracle than any other database system, right? And then end user layer and security must reside in one single Oracle database instance, which means if at all you're talking to a particular database, if you want to have one end user layer, it's just one end user layer. So you want another product, then basically if at all you want to talk to another database, you need another end user layer. There are other ways to do it, DBMS links, whatsoever, but we're not going into the technical aspects of this, but there were some challenges over there too. Right? So, yeah, one second. I'll return over here to Joe, who wants to talk a little bit real quick.
I'll just take 30 seconds. We're just doing a drawing for a $100wine.com gift certificate. If you'd like to enter the drawing, you can fill this out. We'll take them up at the end, and we'll do it at the end of the day. So, fairly optional. Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So, if at all you're trying to use Discover for data warehouse system, there were some challenges from the analytics part of it. Okay. Saying that, if at all you have any performance issues, for you to tune it further, there are a lot of limitations for you to do that. Okay, so Discover was one of the things where we had some problems. Okay. Now, we were talking earlier, some of us, about the support what we have. The last I could see is, you see June 2014 is the supported, Discover supported by Oracle. But again, this dates is what I got the slide last, but this could have changed. Okay, it depends upon the type of relationship what you got with Oracle and how you have the licensing too. Okay. June 2014 is what it says over here, and then June 2017 is extended support. So it depends on, again, as I said. All right. Next important topic, OBIEE. All right. It's all about OBIEE nowadays. Okay. There are several reasons why it's all about OBIEE, because Oracle is saying that is the future. Oracle says OBIEE is what we're going to support. That's a BI solution for you guys. All right. Believe me, I've seen various other products. This is one of the best products available in the market, including our competitors of Oracle and whatever you want to say that. Okay. So as you all know, Oracle kind of bought out Siebel, and OBIEE used to be called as Siebel Analytics in olden days, and now it's called OBIEE. All right. So 10.134 used to be one of the stable versions. After Siebel Analytics 7.x, OBIEE 10.1x was there, but 3.4 was one of the stable, I guess. Question something? That's fine. So 10.134 is one of the stable versions, but after that, there was a complete architecture change. Okay, if at all you're looking at OBIEE 10.134 and 11G, which is now the latest version is 11.117. But if you see the architecture from 10G to 11G, it's complete change. So 11G has WebLogic, and there's a lot of integration into the security is integrated with WebLogic and so on. Okay, so this is a lot of change. Right? So as I said, it comes with WebLogic server, and is also very well integrated with Hyperion. So if at all you have to do any reporting from Hyperion, you can actually use 11G directly. All right? And then, I don't know how many of you know, OBIEE 11G, when you say, it doesn't mean that the data warehouse comes along with it. Okay?
Yeah, no.
Okay, OBIEE 11G is a reporting tool.
Yeah.
Whereas there is another product which is called BI Apps. It's very well known as BI Apps, but some of them actually use OBAW. Okay, so 7964. The latest version is that comes along with Informatica for ETL, and also there is an option for you to go with ODI, which is one of the latest data warehousing tool from Oracle. Okay, so now they actually support that one too, and then they send it as an option for us to kind of get it. Okay, So the good thing about these OBIEE apps is they have built-in adapters directly to Oracle EBS or PeopleSoft or SAP too. Okay, so that's one of the good things about this. All right. So what is the high-level architecture of OBIEE? How does it kind of work? Okay. So you basically have the OBIEE server, the BI server part of it. It can talk to various data sources, right? And then you have various options, the tools which come with OBIEE for you to report off of. So you have the interactive dashboards. So let me take two. All right, so to kind of go over the components of OBIEE 11G, you have the BI analysis. Okay, this is the ad hoc reporting tool for OBIEE. So if you want to relate this one to Discover, it is on similar path with Discover Plus. Again, all of you need to remember one thing. Discover architecture is different, the way it used to work is different. OBIEE is different, the way it works is different. It's not a complete replacement or 100% replacement of Discover. But there are a lot of features in OBIEE which kind of replace Discover tool usage. Okay? All right. So BI analysis is a reporting tool. Okay. Now, if some of you may ask, where is the replacement for Discover Viewer? Okay. BI analysis, if you change the permissions for the usage, will become or will mimic Discover Viewer. Okay. Do you all follow that? Okay. So interactive dashboards. This is one of the best features within OBIEE. Okay. If at all you have one of the analysis report or 2 or 3 of them, you could actually have all those as portlets as part of a single portal page. It is like my Yahoo page or my Google page or whatsoever. You could customize your own web page or dashboard and incorporate, deploy the analysis reports in interactive dashboards. Right? There is also Delivers, which is like a scheduler part of it. And then, as I said, OBIEE is a suite of products. Okay? It comes with BI analysis, dashboards, and then you also have BI Publisher. Okay? It's a product which comes as a built-in tool along with OBIEE. When you install OBIEE, this is one of your tools too. Okay? Okay. And then for analysis and interactive reporting for Hyperion, something new in new stuff in 11G. Okay? And then this perform management scorecard, and then this part of it, similar to what you have in Discover Administrator, there are some client-based tools also, right? So in Discover Administration, you use to manage security, grant access to folders, and so on. Okay, the security works partially in analysis. Okay, it depends upon the way you log in as an admin and so on. And then it works in another tool called OBIEE Administrator tool. Okay, you could use this one to bring in the folders. There's partial security which you could do also in administrator. There are a couple of security administrations which can be done. Okay? And then you also have the BI Publisher desktop version of it for you to like using Microsoft Office tools also. You could use that right as a plugin. And then you have the catalog manager. If you all remember, when we were done, like I think that will actually answer your question, is when you develop the SQL or the Discover report, sorry, okay, you had SQL built into it, and it was part of the object which was saved in the database, right? For you to migrate, you could actually have kind of get into a schema and migrate down. But in OBIEE, it's a file structure. It's like for you basically are saving it in a file system. The query and everything is just, it's all references using something called repository. And repository is managed by OBIEE administration. Right? Okay. And then one of the new things in OBIEE is it actually has integrated with iPhone, an iPad, the mobile device. Okay, it's like an app. It connects directly to your OBIEE, and then you can run the reports off of your iPad or Mac. Right?
The scheduler, does it schedule reports and then get email alerts?
Yes.
Reports? Yes.
It is a configuration process which you'll have to do with the email server. there are a few steps involved in there. Yes, you can ask me.
BIEE publisher part, does it do reporting against OLTP or
Both. We'll do both. Basically, there is a connection you can actually create with the BIEE publisher when you're configuring it, and then when you're connecting it, you can connect either to database, a data warehouse system, or to the OLTP system. That's the connection tool, basically. It's not through the repository. It basically has its own connectivity setup process.
I set that up based on the reports. I can provide certain user with both OLTP and both.
Yeah, so basically what you can do is you can actually make use of interactive dashboards and have those reports, deployed in there, and they can actually run the reports directly in dashboards. Right? So the next one. The high-level topic about BIEE apps. Again, as I said, mentioned earlier, okay, you have the Informatica coming with OBIEE apps, okay, and then also you have ODI. You could use either of the ETL or ELT tools for you to kind of extract data from the ERP system and then populate them in the data warehouse tables. All right? And if you look, I don't know how many of you know, but OBIEE, the repository, is basically built off of Kimball's methodology called star schema. Yeah. Right? So the BIEE apps is basically, if at all you look at the dimensions and the facts, it follows the star schema. Okay? Similar to that, what they've done is they have created the repository out of the box. So when you implement the BIEE apps, okay, you get a repository along with the whole implementation process. And if you dig deeper into the repository, it is off of its star schema. Like you have the locations or the calendar, any of those things, basically pointing to a fact table in a fact and dimension process. So it's all star schema based. Okay? And also, besides the repository, it also has a presentation services catalog. That means out of the box, once you do the whole implementation process, okay, there is a catalog which comes along with it. They have built-in dashboards and reports, which you could actually look into. All right. So, and then those dashboards and reports currently they have it for financial analytics, procurement spend, HR, order management, and a few others. And a lot of others are still in progress right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the latest version, you said like OBIEE is given shipped with ODI.
Right.
Is there any improvement or new features available when compared to PDF Informatica?
See, ODI is again another ETL tool. Okay. So yeah. So Informatica. So what happened is they had a lot. Informatica has been going on so far. So they have a lot of apps already built in Informatica. But ODI they just started off. So currently they have financial analytics and I think service, if I'm not from the CRM side. But they are still with a lot of other things which are working process right now. So, but again, if you really look at the architecture wise, right, it's still the same ERP system pointing to the data warehouse tables, right? So you would still have the same features to begin with. I'm sure there are a few other features from the tool perspective. There could be some features like
Any performance related enhancements you are aware of?
not that I'm not aware of at this point, but I'll have to dig deep into that too. Yeah. All right. So what's the advantage of us using the pre-built apps? If at all you start off from scratch, the data warehouse process, okay, for any of your ERP modules, it's going to take a lot of time. Yeah. So if at all you're using the BIEE apps, this diagram over here will give you a high-level overview of how much time you can save with, if you're implementing BIEE apps. Okay. Those plugins are pretty good. The configuration steps are pretty simple comparatively. Okay, but yes, you'll have to go through a few steps here and there. Some challenges up there definitely, but it still gives you, a step forward to kind of implement data process. Right? Now, so saying that, this is basically about Discover to OBIEE. So what are the advantages of here? See, if we spoke about OBIEE being the next generation data reporting tool, yes? In Discoverer, as I was mentioning earlier, if at all you had to connect to different database systems, you used to have different end user layers. But the best part in OBIEE is you could connect to different sources, okay, in one single environment. You could get in the data from the data warehouse system, the ERP system, SQL Server, if at all you have SAP system, any other systems. Okay, one of the first diagrams will actually have shown you that. Okay, so that's one of the best things about this. So you have only one single thin client web interface for you to deal with. No more multiple environments for you to handle. And one of the greater things about OBIEE is the charts, the gates, and controls. I mean, you have so much of interactive, especially in 11G version compared to 10G, there's a lot more improvement. I mean, you could actually use sliders, see the graphs move up and down accordingly, and then it's very user-friendly. Right. So it actually has delivery options, like in Discover, it did not have a delivery system. There's a lot of configuration steps you have to go through before you do that, but in OBIEE it's already built in. And then performance optimization, right? You could optimize from the BI server perspective too. You could build your own views if you want to, and then bring them in. Okay, so there are other features which you can actually do also. Okay, it's definitely highly scalable, no doubt about that.
So question, when you upgrade from 10.134 to 11G, how does it affect the BI apps if BI apps was implemented in 10.134?
See, some of the features, see what happens is, BI apps, if you're only looking at it from the data perspective, there should not be any change. From the data perspective. But if you're looking at the reporting perspective, if at all you've used some of the features like, I'm just coming with an example, it may not be really issue, like some calculation which you've used, that calculation may not show up 100% exactly like the way. It would happen more with the chart, but I don't see any other reason why it should be. But data perspective, if at all you're using the same infrastructure for the database part of it, they should not be any different.
Okay.
But yeah, 11G is a different thing in architecture. One important thing you may have to do is the security implementation. In 10G, you would implement security using the repository, but in 11G, you'll have to use the project.
Can you connect concurrently with different sources?
Yes.
Altogether?
Yes. That's a good part about OBIEE. And all the stuff happens within OBIEE administration, which I showed you earlier, which is in the repository side. Is basically you bring in the data source, as long as you have the connectivity with regards to TNS names, or if it could be basically OCI or ODBC connection, you could do it. That source is saved, it's sitting there, it's saved.
So the security and web logic we have to consider and administer separately other than like, say we are primarily using ERP system. We have a different like, responsibility-based security over there. If we use here, can we interlink them or do we have?
You could actually have both. If at all you're using LDAP, you could use LDAP too. Like we've just, one of the projects where we've done, we did both. We actually brought in MSAD, and we actually had some users within the WebLogic itself, like some test users example. We wanted some test users besides the LDAP, because test users cannot be part of LDAP, right? So we had two different ways of doing it, and we could do that. Okay.
So on that slide you mentioned that consider migration of Discover over OBIEE to keep license costs low. How does that help?
Yeah. So what we're trying to say is, when you're trying to migrate from, basically what we're trying to say is comparison, okay? Do not bring in the BI apps along with OBIEE, if you have to. First migrate the Discover to OBIEE, which is comparatively cheaper than implementing the whole BI apps. And then the users get accustomed to it. And then once you start implementing the BI apps, they get used to it better. I mean, they'll have better control of the apps part of it, and they'll be able to build better reports. That's what we actually mean by saying that way. Right? So consider migration of Discover to OBIEE first. That's what you can do, and that's what we recommended and we've been successful. Okay, and then we get basically the licensing is much cheaper if you buy the OBIEE product by itself. Okay, if you just buy the BI apps, as I said,
you already pay part of it.
The licensing is different. Okay, and then once you are comfortable with when the users are comfortable with OBIEE, you can decommission Discover, okay, and then you can get experience within OBIEE, and then go through the process of BI apps. Right? All right, I think I got a few more slides to go through. Okay, so migrating Discover to OBIEE. Again, like any other product, okay, Oracle also kind of provided us with one of the tools for us to migrate from Discover to OBIEE. But we had some design challenges. So what happens is when you're trying to migrate EUL using the migration tool to OBIEE, it's a half-cooked process. Okay, you can get your basic infrastructure for you to kind of look at the views, the folders, whatsoever, like the subject area, like the business areas and so on. Okay, business areas you can relate them as something called subject areas in OBIEE, where you can build the reports off of, where you can have them secured. Right? But then it had its own challenges too, because when it's migrating, remember as I mentioned earlier, it follows the Kimball's methodology. Okay, if you use the utility, try to migrate, it does a good job. Comparatively, it does a good job. But again, you have a lot of unwanted stuff coming along with that too. So this is a very good time for you to kind of evaluate your Discover and see if at all you want to rewrite some of the stuff. You could manually use your own ways of doing it. And then in our case, what we've done is we've done it both ways. We made use of the tool. Initially, we got the repository, and then what we did is we brought in some of the views and then made them look exactly like Discover. Because it is very user-friendly from there on, because all the users are familiar with Discover for them to build the reports. Okay, that's what we've done, and we had our OBIEE migration done. Okay, so after all this process, we were able to kind of handle the security as I mentioned earlier. We brought in the LDAP, top part of it, and then the end-user training and acceptance, as we were discussing earlier. We went through 14 different sessions for training. Okay, so we had to train users across the board. Okay, and then we were able to train all the users. Let me go through the slides really quick. So while we were developing the end user layer, migrating the end user layer to OBIEE, what we've done is we've used a migration assistant. What we did is we've done some custom development again, and what we did is we went through the phase of understanding the basic requirements of the client, and then redesign some of the stuff. Okay. So what we did is we have converted the end user layer to repository file system, and when we're using the tool itself, there are several limitations. I'm not going to go through each point because of the time constraint right now I have, but there are some other issues. As I said, there's a lot of clutter which comes along with that, so you need to evaluate that part also when you're doing that. Okay, as we're talking again, we're talking different things here. But Discover EUL is integrated well with the EBS roles and responsibilities, and the same things we were able to kind of implement again in OBIEE also. Without much, there was not much difficulty in doing that, but we were able to do that, and all of this was done in WebLogic and MSAD. Okay, so optimizations. Now, we were able to use aggregates and so on, and same thing we were able to do in OBIEE also. Okay, and as dashboard, as I said, is one of the greatest tools to come along with OBIEE, because you could develop same reports, have them deployed in different dashboards, and grant access to the dashboard. So you're basically running the same report, and if you really, unless some kind of a prompt or parameter value is being changed, it could use cache to retrieve the data back. So that's much faster too. Okay. So one of the challenges generally is, as we were talking earlier with Heminder, is about how the users accept the new tool. Okay. We went through several rounds of training, right from the basic, even before we started designing. We started showing the product as a sample product. We did some small POC with one of the end user layers with few tables here and there, and then started demonstrating them to the users. We made sure the users get accustomed to it. And then that was a whole transition process. And now the users are able to develop their own reports. And they're very happy to use dashboards to deploy those reports. They could have several tabs, different tabs, to have different types of reports like yearly, quarterly, and monthly, and so on. Right? So some of this information, basically, we got, if at all we look at the slides, we got some of the information from the Oracle websites too. And we refer to some of these websites over here, okay, which are very common. All get access to this one too. We at Infosemantics also, we do encourage all the users to kind of look at the EBS latest 12, the R12, and what we've done is to kind of make it convenient for all the users. We ourselves have done the extraction of EBS vision data to BI apps, and so we have some of the tools.
Vision instant.
So we have links over here. So yeah, we have public and instance available. So if at all you can contact us, we can grant access to any of you, and then you can take a look at that one too.
All right.
All right.
Good.
Last but not least, we are an EBS integrator, solution providers also. So we do it. We have upgraded from 11 to R12, and we are kind of BI apps and OBIEE solution provider. Okay. Saying that, this is my information. Any questions so far? Yes, please.
Can you go back a few slides? There's one you were saying the workbook is not migrated.
Yeah. So the workbook is not migrated. Okay. That's what happens is when you're using the migration tool, it migrates the end user layer part of it. Okay, which means your table structures, the folders, they come along. Once that is done, it's a half-cooked product. From there on, you need to kind of start developing your reports. They just need, yeah, you need to drag and drop and then create your own reports. That's what I'm basically meant to.
Report will not migrate report.
The reports are not migrated. You'll have to do that.
That's terrible.
Because you need to understand this. The way the
Different
look and feel is
culture,
different. The infrastructure is different.
Different structure.
Okay. So that's one of the important things you have to do.
So could you go back to the limitation this slide?
Yeah. So the workbooks are not migrated. So some of the optional conditions which you have in the end user layer, right? Yeah, those will not be coming through. And then hierarchies, of course. The date hierarchy is what you have in the system.
God.
In the end user layer, they will not be available. Okay. In the item class, of course.
It's a lot not migrate.
Any other questions? Yes.
Does the application retain story security?
Sorry.
How does it control security?
Security, they're using single sign-on.
Yeah, definitely there are a few configuration steps you have to do there. Yes, yes. Yes, please.
So when it's used not against the data warehouse, usual, is it just a speed or some other language?
When you're not using it against the data loss table, what that means.
It's just a speed or something else, disadvantage,
You could actually use this product against your ERP system also, and also data warehouse system. It depends upon the type of reporting what you want. Definitely when you're trying to kind of report off of data warehouse system, the way the structure is different, right? I mean, you have summarized data, you have the detailed data and all this stuff. Definitely it's faster. But if you want the transaction like as of now what happened, you definitely have to point to ERP system. But again, you will have some challenges if you're pointing to the system, the queries are not written properly, if the tables are not being indexed or what, there are other performance things you can do. But on the same note, OBIEE itself has some interesting ways of caching it. You could actually make use of caching and so on. That could be helpful. Depends upon how you're reporting this.
You can't really do a lot of complex queries. You can't really get a lot
we'll have to either create views based on those complex queries and then, try to derive data from that, but then that, will affect the performance.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, complexity of the query makes a difference. That's a key for you to, what kind of calculations you have, how many years of data you're fitting, how many what are calculating. Those are the drivers for you to see whether you want to have it in a view, maybe that's a view, or in template table and so on.
And what we actually use it both ways. And what we've noticed is that if it also depends on the amount of data that's being returned. There's a tendency for it to crash if you're trying to pull a lot of data, going directly against the database.
Yeah, and there is a way you can actually control the number of rows or retrieves in OBIEE. I mean, that used to be there in Discover if I'm not wrong, but the same thing in OBIEE too, but there's an easier way to control that. You can limit the number of rows so that you don't get the whole million rows of data, and that will control it. Yeah? Any other questions? Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you.